Namo Namaha, Bhavtam Sarvesham, Hardam Swagatam. Welcome back to my channel Sanskrit Sopanam. I hope you are doing great. I am also good. And continuing in a series, Learning Sanskrit through Gita, the shloka that we are going to decode today is the 14th shloka of the chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. And this particular shloka, even though pretty straightforward, very easy to understand, but this shloka very beautifully, very simply demonstrates a very key point in our understanding of Sanskrit language. And that key point is that all the pronouns, all the adjectives will follow the same word form, the same Shabdroop of its noun. So suppose we take any Sanskrit verse, any Sanskrit line from Panchatantra story or a stotram or a subhashitam or a Kalidasa play anywhere. Suppose we encounter any unfamiliar Sanskrit verse. Now mostly in most cases it will have close to around 10 or 12 words, right? And if you can individually understand the meaning of those words, those 10 or 12 words, then you can place the entire context, entire meaning of the Sanskrit verse together. And in all these 10 or 12 words what are present in the Sanskrit verse, some will be the verb, the kriyapad, the action, the dhatu, right? And some will be the nouns, right? And some will be adjectives or pronouns or avyaya indeclinable. All these word categories we have already seen. Now in order to approach any unfamiliar Sanskrit verse, you can first try to identify the verb, the kriyapad, the action. Because if you know the action, that what is going on, what is happening in the shloka, then a lot of context of the shloka of that entire verse can register in your mind. So first of all, you identify the verb, the kriyapad. And then you identify the noun. So the noun is that certain person or a certain place or a certain thing that around which the entire context, the entire meaning of the shloka will be built. And then apart from noun or verb, whatever words are present, they will either be the pronouns or they will be the adjectives or they will be the indeclinable or avyaya. Now avyaya is easy to understand. Why? Because avyaya they have the fixed meaning and fixed form. Once you know them, you already know them for life. They are never going to change their form. They are never going to change their meaning. So avyaya indeclinable is very easy to identify. It is just a matter of building the vocabulary. Okay, but the tricky part is the pronouns and the adjectives, because you can have multiple adjectives for a single noun and multiple pronouns also for a single noun. And this creates a confusion. Why? Because Sanskrit is a free word order language. Sanskrit does not follow any fixed order. So you can have a noun in the start of the verse, but the adjective to describe it can be at the last of the verse. And this creates the entire confusion because Sanskrit is not an ordered language. It is a free order. Any word can be anywhere. So for a beginner, it becomes quite intimidating to approach Sanskrit text. But here comes the trick, the key concept, that adjectives and pronouns, they strictly match the word form, the Shabdroop of its noun. So it doesn't matter where in the sentence the adjectives are present. If you can only identify that, okay, all two or three, all these words, they are in the same word form. So they are connected with each other. And if you can identify the noun, then you can very easily identify the adjectives or the pronouns that are pointing towards that noun. That if balak, the pratipadik, it is written as balakaha. So it is in the first case word form. So all the adjectives, all the different words that are being used to describe that particular noun, balak, they will also be in first case word form. So Sundar will be written as Sundaraha. Now Pratapavat, it will be written as Pratapvan. And if Balak is written as Balake, that is the seventh case, so Pratapavat will also be in its seventh form, that is Pratapavati. So Pratapavati Balake. So these are connected with each other. Why? Because they are following the same word form. So you can very easily group them together. That okay, these words, these adjectives, they belong to this particular noun. All these pronouns and adjectives, they belong to this particular noun. And this is how you cross-reference, and this is how you one by one, step by step decode any Sanskrit text. And this exact thing we are going to see through the shloka today. So okay, I will not talk much. Let's quickly decode the shloka and understand, demonstrate this point that I just spoke about. So as always, this is the shloka, the 14th shloka that we will decode today. Let me go through the shloka once. Tata shvetair hayair yukte mahati syandane sthitau madhavav pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankhau Pradadmatuhu. So this is the shloka and this is the Sandhi Vichhed version of the shloka. So what all sandhis are happening in the shloka? Again, all this detail is present in the PDF file. You can download the PDF file from the link in the description box. And do download that PDF file. Do check out the sandhi section because sandhi is something we do not cover in the video. So please check out the sandhi section. Learn how the words like Pandavas Chaiva, they break down into Pandavah Cha Ev. The words like Shvetair Hayair Yukte, these breaks into three words, Shvetahi Hayahi Yukte. So how this sandhi operates and everything, all that is available in the sheet. So I'll just move forward. Okay, so let's start our decoding process. And as usual, we start with an anchor word. And we generally take the verb, the Kriya Pad, as our anchor word because Kriya, the verb, is the first thing you should identify in any Sanskrit verse. Once you know the action, then you already know a little bit about the context of the Sanskrit verse, that what it will be about mostly. So pradadmatuhu, this comes from the root word dma. Dma, this verb, this dhatu, we have already seen before also. Shankha dadmahu pratapvan. When Bhishma Pitama, he blew the conch. So we have already seen in that particular shloka. Dma, this simply means to blow. Blow as in to blow in air to produce sound. So that to blow. So this verb root dma in third person dual form, that is dvivachan, and perfect past tense, that is lit lakar, this changes into dadmatuhu. And with the prefix pra, with the upsarga, the prefix pra, the entire word becomes pradadmatuhu. That means they both blew or they both sounded. Why they both? Because again, this is in dvivachan dual form. So in the shloka that I just gave you example, dadmau. So this dadmau, this is the same dma verb root in third person past perfect, but this is singular. A single person did the action because Bhishma Pitama alone, he did the action. So a single person did the action, so ekvachan. Here we will see that Madhav and Pandav, basically Krishna and Arjun, they both did the action. So two people do the action, so dual, that is dvivachan. And in dvivachan it is dadmatuhu. So anyways, pradadmatuhu, that means they both, who both we will see, they both blew or they both sounded. And let's move forward. And immediately the question is cow. Like what? What did they blew? And the answer is shankha. So shankha obviously comes from the base word, the pratipadik shankh. Shankh is a musical instrument, that is conch, that we know as conch, a very common Indian household instrument that we use in temples and everything. So shankh, our pratipadik, our base word here, it is a masculine gender word and it is in second word case and dual. Again, dvivachan. In second word case, the forms go like ramam, ramau, raman. So shankham, shankhau, shankhan. And here, since there are two objects, so we are using dual, that is dvivachan. That's why shankha. And if you can see that the pronoun that I was using here, I was using this pronoun kim. Kim is our question pronoun, like who, what, everything. Whenever we want to ask a question, we use this pronoun kim. And because I wanted to point towards this noun, shankha, so here also this follows the same word form. So kim, it will use the second case dual form, and that's why I use cow. If it had been a single shankha, so it would have been written as shankham, and I would have used here kim, like kim, what. But since here the nouns are two in number, so shankha, so even the pronoun that I'm using here is cow, the dual vachan, because again pronouns, they strictly match the noun. So with this we'll move forward. And now I'm asking kidrishav. Again, you can understand that kidrish is the base word. Kidrish is what, like, that describe it. And since I'm describing a noun that is in dual mode, in dvivachan, so here kidrish is also changing into dvivachan. That's why kidrishav. But the question is still the same, that what, like, that describe that shankh. And the answer is divyav. So divyav, this comes from the base word, the pratipadik divya. And divya simply means splendorous or magnificent. So we are describing those two shankh as divya, as very splendorous, as magnificent. And since this is an adjective, so it will follow the same word form as its noun. So noun is in second word case dual dvivachan. So the divya will be in second word case dvivachan and will become divyav. So they both blew. What did they blew? The answer was shankha, that is two conches. And what, like, what were those conches like? And they were divya, splendorous and magnificent. With this, let's move on. And now the question is cow or who to. So when I want to ask who, so I generally use kaha, right? So kaha, again, it comes from our question pronoun kim. So kaha, who. But since here I am inquiring about two people, so I am using dvivachan. So kaha, kau, and if it had been plural, more than two, it would have been k. But here I am using cow, that who to you are talking about, who to blew the conch. And the answer, the response is Madhavah Pandavah Cha Ev. So Madhav, the base word, the pratipadik, this is another name of Krishna. And here, since Krishna, he blew the conch, so he is the subject, the karta. So obviously this is in first word case and single person, so single. Okay, so Madhav becomes Madhavah, simply meaning Krishna. And Pandavah, so this Pandav, we know through the context of Mahabharata already that this particular Pandav is referring to Arjuna. So you have five main Pandava, right? Five Pandava brothers. But here, this is referring to Arjuna. We already know through the context of the backdrop of Mahabharata. So, Madhavaha Pandavaha Cha, simply meaning Krishna, Madhav and Arjuna. Cha is simply and. We already know this. This is an avya, an indeclinable and. And Eve, this is simply, again, a very common indeclinable avya we use. So, Eve is simply indeed. So, who two blew the conch? And the response is Krishna and Pandava, that is Arjuna, indeed. They both blew the conch. Okay, and with this, let's move forward. Now again the same question, Kidrashav, that I am now asking that describe both of them. And the way they are described in the shloka is Sthitau. So Sthitau, this comes from the base word, the Pratipadik, you can already guess, Sthit. And Sthit means someone who is situated, someone who is established, or someone who is present somewhere. So Sthit. And since this adjective is describing two people, so again the Dvivachan. So Sthit becomes Sthitau. So both of them, they were Sthitau, they were situated, or they were present, or they were seated. And immediately a follow-up question can pop up, that situated or seated wherein? Wherein they were situated. So this kasmin, this might be a new word for all of you, but this kasmin again, if you read Panchatantra stories, no, a lot of stories start with this word. Kasmin Grame. Kasmin Grame simply means in some village. So Kasmin again, this again comes from our question pronoun Kim. And since I want to inquire about wherein, that I want to inquire about the location. So in location, we use the seventh word case, right? And in seventh word case, the Kim, it becomes Kasmin. Simply saying wherein they were seated. And the answer is Syandane. This Syandane, again, you can guess the Pratipadik, the base word. The base word is Syandan. And Syandan simply means war chariot. So it means chariot or war chariot. Okay. And since I want to convey that both Krishna and Arjuna, they were seated in chariot, this in chariot, that's why I will use the seventh case. So Syandan, it becomes Syandane. Now you see how Shankho, it is in Dvivachan form. That Shankho, two conches. But don't confuse that Syandan also should be Syandanao. Krishna and Arjuna, they have their own conch. They had their own Shankh. So there were two conches present. That's why it is in Dvivachan, dual mode. So Shankho. But the chariot, the war chariot in which they were both seated, that was a single chariot only. That's why Syandan is in single word case only. So Syandan in seventh word case, single form, it becomes Syandane. So far so good, and let's move forward. And now the question is Kidrashe. Now this Kidrashe, you can see the way it is written also, Kidrashe. This Kidrash I am using to describe Syandan. Why? Because our Syandan, this is in seventh case, Syandane. So I am using what like that describe the chariot now. And the way it is described in the shloka is Mahati. Mahati comes from the base word Mahat. And Mahat, this means large or great, very large, very great. And Mahat, this adjective, since it is describing this Syandane, so this will also take the same seventh case, single form. And in seventh case, it becomes Mahati. So Mahati Syandane simply means a very large, a very great chariot. Now I understand that words such as this, that Mahat, they look like they should follow the same word form as something like Ram. So Ram, it becomes Rame. Just we saw no that Syandan, it becomes Syandane in seventh case. But this Mahat, it does not become Mahate. It has its own form. It becomes Mahati. Why? Because there is a general difference between such kinds of words and such kind of words. The difference is simple, that these words, Mahat, whatever words end with this symbol, no, Halant. We know the symbol, right? This symbol is called Halant. So whatever words, whatever base words, whatever Pratipadik, they end with a Halant. So as the name says, they are known as Halant. And all those Pratipadik, all the base words that end with some form of vowel. So Ram, this also have a vowel in it, right? If you put the Halant in Ma, so that it gets revealed. And that's why we say Ram, it is an Akarant word, because it ends with the A. Just as Guru, it ends with a Ukarant word. So the words like Mahat or Manas or Vach, whatever base word, whatever Pratipadik, they end with a Halant, they all are known as Halant. Obviously, and then all the words that have vowels that ends with a vowel, they are known as Ajant. Now why they are known as Halant and why they are known as Ajant, I will not go deep into this, but I'll just quickly tell you that this is like an abbreviation, this is like a wrapper for all the consonants that are present in the Sanskrit alphabet. And similarly, Ach, this is like a wrapper for all the vowels that are present in the Sanskrit alphabet. So whatever words, whatever pratipadik, they is a word for end, right? So whatever words that end with hal, they are known as halant. And whatever words that end with the ach, any ach. By ach, what I mean? Any vowel. So whatever words end with any vowel, they are known as ach ant. And due to sandhi, it becomes ajant. So I really don't know why I digressed into this, but okay, now you know that halant, all the base words, all the pratipadiks that end with some form of consonant, and ajant, all the base words pratipadik that end with some vowel. Why? Because hal, this is a group for all the consonants, and ach, this is a group for all the vowels. Now this hal and ach, we will discuss about them in some other video. This is related to Maheshwar Sutra. What are them? What are those things? Again, in separate video. But just know this for now. Okay, but a thing that I wanted to bring in your notice was that all these halant words, no, they more or less decline. They more or less decline in a same way. So we saw that Mahati, this is the seventh case, right? So Mahat, this pratipadik, it changes into Mahati in seventh case, singular ekvachan form. So this Vach, this you can guess, this will also change into Vachi. Same Manas, this will also change into Manasi. So Manas simply means mind, and Manasi, I simply means in mind. Because seventh case. So even though these halant words, they follow quite a different word forms from the words we have already seen, like Ram, Guru, Nadi, and all those. But the good thing is that all these halant word forms, no, they more or less follow the same kind of word forms. They decline in a similar manner. So Mahat becomes Mahati, Vach also becomes Vachi, Manas also become Manasi. So obviously in some time, with some intuition, you will start to recognize these words, that Mahati, that even though it does not look anything like the seventh case we are so used to, but in time you will start to notice these things. And once you will start to notice these things, you will identify that Syandan, this is the noun that means chariot, the war chariot, and Syandane, this means in war chariot, because seventh case. And Mahati, this is in this seventh case form, so it is obviously the adjective for this noun only, chariot. And this means in a large chariot, in a great chariot. This is how you will start to build up the connection. This is how you will start to cross-reference the words with each other. And this will obviously come in time once we have built enough vocabulary, once we have practiced these sentences long enough. And that is what we are doing here. So yeah, not a problem. Let's move on. So we have described the chariot as Mahat. That is large and great. Now I'm asking Punascha Kidrashe, that what else? How else you can describe the chariot? And we get Yukt. So Yukt means yoked or coupled, coupled with. And in seventh case, it becomes Yukte. Why seventh case? Again, because this adjective is also describing its noun, Syandan. Now immediately the question will come, that coupled with what? And the response is Hayahi. The base word, the pratipadik is Haya. And haya, this is a word for horse, because I want to convey that coupled with horse. So when I want to convey something like by something, with something, so I use the third case. So with horse, that's why I will use the third case. And since the war chariot, obviously what coupled with was yoked with multiple horses, right? So we'll use the third case plural form. And in third case plural form, haya, it becomes hayahi. So Ram becomes Ramahi. Similarly, haya, that means horse, it becomes hayahi, because I want to say with horses. That yukte hayahi, coupled with horses. So up till now we were describing this Syandan, the war chariot. First question was that how was it? It was Mahat. It was large and great. Then how was it? It was Yukt. It was yoked or coupled. Immediately we asked, coupled with what? And the answer was coupled with horses. So hayahi. Okay, so I have missed out with here. So with horses. Hayahi. And with this, let's move forward. And now the question is Kidrashahi. Now, if you can identify Kidrashahi, why I am writing Kidrash as such, Kidrashahi? Because I am now going to describe these horses. So Kidrashahi, what were those horses like? And the answer is Shwetahi. And most of you can already guess the base word, the Pratipadik. The base word is Shwet. Shwet means white. And since Shwet, this is an adjective, so again, this will take the same word form as its noun. Horses, hayahi. So third case plural form. So Shwetahi hayahi simply means white horses. So the war chariot in which both Krishna and Arjuna, they were seated, that chariot was yoked with white horses. That is the meaning here. So that was the entire decoding of the shloka, and interestingly we saw that there were groups of words, that Divyo Shankhav, this belonged to a same group. Then you have this Yukte Mehati Sandane. This belong to same group. Then you have Sthitau Madhav Pandava. That belong to same group. And lastly, Shweta Hi Hayahi. That belong to same group. And in all these groups, we had a noun, Shankh here, that is conch, and how the conch was described as Divya. So, Shankhau Divyau, both using the same word form. Similarly, we have two persons, Madhav and Pandav. And in order to describe both those persons, we use the adjective Sthitau again in Dvivachan form. That they both were situated, so Sthit becomes Sthitau. And then they were seated in chariot. So, Chyandan, chariot, in chariot, so it becomes Chandani. And in order to describe this noun now, both the adjectives, they also assume the seventh case. So Mahat, it becomes Mahati, that is the large chariot, and Yukt becomes Yukte. That is, that chariot, that large chariot was yoked. And then in order to convey that yoked with what? So yoked with horses. And with horses, that's why we use the third case of Haya. Haya, that means horse. So with horses, that means Hayahi. And to describe the horses, we used Shwet, that is white. But again, the adjective follows the same word form of its noun. So Shwet becomes Shwetahi, that is white horses. And actually, this shloka is already in the right order. So we don't need any anvay or any rearrangement as such. So just quickly move in the translation. That okay, this tata hai, we have already seen in the previous shlokas also. Tata is a avya indeclinable and simply means thereafter. So again, since these shlokas are like a series of events that happened, so continuing from the whatever happened in the last shloka, so whatever happened thereafter, all this happened. So Sanjay is narrating this to Dhritarashtra. So tataha, thereafter, present in the large chariot. So present, that is Sthitau, in the large chariot, that is Mahati Sandane, yoked, that is Yukte, with white horses. So with horses, that is Hayahi, and with white horses, that is Shwetahi Hayahi. Krishna and Arjuna indeed, Madhava Pandava cha ev, blew Pradadmatuhu, magnificent conches. Divyau Shankhahu. And so that was the entire shloka. That was how we decoded it. And I hope you got the point that I so wanted to demonstrate through this shloka, that how if we can identify that, okay, all these words, they are together, all these words, they are in the same word form, so they might be connected with each other. And obviously in time when we have our vocabulary build up, so I understand that Syandane, you cannot understand that it means in chariot if you don't know what is the meaning of Syandan. So that is a matter of vocabulary and that builds over time. But the important thing is if you can identify these things, that Syandane, I don't know the meaning what is Syandan, but I do know that Mahati, Yukte, all these words, they are connected together. So even if you know this much, then you're already on a right track on beginning to start to decode the unfamiliar Sanskrit text. And obviously with more practice and the more we learn about these things, the more we practice them, we apply them in these practical texts, obviously our ability, our intuitive abilities will also build up. So yeah, we learn these things, we become aware of these concepts, and then we start to apply these things in a practical text such as Bhagavad Gita that we do in these videos. And soon enough, you'll start to build up your ability to identify these things yourself, and the more we practice, better we get at this. And before I end this session, I just want to tell that today is Gita Jayanti. Hopefully I release this video on the date of Gita Jayanti, and Gita Jayanti marks the celebration of the birth of Bhagavad Gita, that when Sri Krishna, he unrevealed this divine knowledge to Arjuna, his companion, when they were in the battlefield in Kurukshetra. So Gita Jayanti celebrates that the birth of Bhagavad Gita, such a profound text that whether you are spiritual or not, whether you are religious or not, whether you are a very practical person, just busy or involved with the chores of your life, but Bhagavad Gita has something to offer to everyone. And that's something you can apply in every wake of your life. And I agree that even though a lot that is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, it is quite difficult to follow in actual life. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of faith in applying all those and waiting for the result. But again, as Sri Krishna so beautifully mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that just do your work and don't worry about the result. Eventually it will happen. So Bhagavad Gita is full of such wisdom. And it's a beautiful text and applies to everyone out there, and nothing is beyond what is taught in Bhagavad Gita, what is present in Bhagavad Gita. And see, Bhagavad Gita is also helping us to learn Sanskrit. So yeah, Bhagavad Gita is just like a fountain that is endless. It is just our capability, that how much we can absorb from Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, I won't say a lot about Bhagavad Gita. There are so many better people to better explain the significance of the profoundness of Bhagavad Gita. But I just want to very heartfully wish all of you a very happy, prosperous Gita Jayanti. Gita Jayanti ki बहुत बहुत बधाई. And I hope that you learn something from these lessons. I hope I am doing justice by picking up Bhagavad Gita and trying to make these Sanskrit lessons and trying to make Sanskrit understanding, Sanskrit learning a bit more approachable. So yeah, that's the aim. And with this, I'll wrap up the session for today. I'll meet you up again in the next video, in the next shloka. We'll learn something new. Up until then, stay awesome, stay happy. Vayam punah milamaha. Dhanyavad.